welcome to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 66th episode of the SImple Sophisticate. Let's get this morning started with a reminder of what being rich, when I say rich today, I mean that financial secure feeling. We're going to talk today about what the difference is between being rich, actually being financially secure, versus acting rich and putting a persona on for the world, but then coming home and feeling very insecure about where you stand financially. Before I get to today's episode, where we outline 11 different ways you can become truly financially secure, I'm going to give you a hint about what today's Petit Plaisir is. It is a book for my Francophiles. If you are looking to cultivate that truly simple yet quality-filled lifestyle inspired by the kitchens and the gardens and the homes of the French, I have a book for you that was just released and I think you will absolutely enjoy. I know I am. So that will be coming up at the end of today's episode. But today we are talking about the difference between acting rich and actually being rich. So let's get started. I want to begin with a quote by author Thomas J. Stanley. He states, "More people look richer than they really are, and the really rich often don't look anything like what we think they should look like." Something to think about. Perception versus reality. The primary goal of someone working in public relations is to present an exterior that will prompt a desired result, whether it be sales, a boost of confidence, a change, a movement, acceptance. You get the idea. But as those who have been behind the scenes know, just because an image is given or presented to the audience of what looks rich doesn't mean it actually is so. The multi-million-dollar contracts that are signed by Adonis-esque athletes or the many homes owned by the starlets that we see in all the celebrity magazines and newspapers, or the endorsed products by celebrities that we see ad nauseum, don't necessarily guarantee or demonstrate the truth behind what being financially rich actually is. In Thomas J. Stanley's 2009 book, Stop Acting Rich and Start Living Like a Millionaire, he enumerates the many ways those of us who might desire to be rich are misled to believe what rich actually is. So here's some just general misnomers. I'm going to share 7 of them with you that he outlines in depth in his book, which I highly recommend you pick up. 1, that rich people have or own expensive, well-located homes that have vast amount of square footage, or that they own a Rolex watch. You know what I'm talking about. These watches that cost a couple, if not more than a couple $1,000s, or simply driving a BMW is the word he uses a lot, or a Mercedes, or someone who has a well-stocked wine cellar. How about someone who is always wearing top designer clothing? Or owning a vacation home, and the last one, having hired help at home. He says these are all misnomers. Just because someone has these things does not guarantee or prove that they are rich. Now, absolutely, some of the people that are rich, and we're talking millionaire status here, do have these and absolutely are. But he really truly breaks down in this book the idea that many of us have come to accept the image that unless we have these things, we can't be rich. And so as we pursue these superficial things, we actually hurt ourselves more financially, burdening ourselves with unnecessary debt and responsibilities, when if we wouldn't have pursued those paths, we would be much better off and that much closer to being the financially secure situation we are seeking. In reality, those who are actually rich generally defy the entire list above. Stanley points out that the image of rich presented by the media, advertisers, and celebrities themselves, who in fact are typically, when they're endorsing those particular products, are given these products for free, as we know. They misrepresent the truth of what it takes to become rich. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. What does it take with regards to how we handle our money, the decisions we make in our lives to become financially secure? So what is the definition of rich? In Stanley's first book, The Millionaire Next Door, the numerical goal of net assets is approximately $350,000. Now, regardless of where those assets are coming from, if one has not attained this dollar amount, they are not a true millionaire or they are not truly rich. Now, I realize $350,000 does not make a million. I understand the difference in that. But his idea is they may be someone who lives in $1 million house, but is mortgage that house up to their eyeballs, and they don't actually have any equity in the house. So it's this idea of, yeah, you may have or live in such a way, but it doesn't mean you are a millionaire unless you have $350,000 of net assets. Upon reading this equation, it was in many ways a relief. So I'm reading this over this past month, and I'm thinking, I've always just wanted really concrete answers. And I know that there are very concrete answers with regards to, save for retirement, have emergency fund savings, don't have credit card debt. This idea is even more concrete than those three things. Why? Because for many, and I would include myself in this for a long time, the idea of owning a home or a house is described as the only way to become financially secure. But as we saw in the Great Recession, many took a financial faceplant because of their real estate choices. This is not to say that real estate is a bad financial decision. In fact, it is usually a very good decision in the long run. But the key is to understand that there are many routes to attaining this label of rich or a secure financial life. However you are able to attain that $350,000 mark will be dependent upon your career, your talents, your goals, the locale you live in, and so many other factors. And most importantly, it's important to know that it will take time, so it requires patience. With that said, I want to share with you 11 ways we can all eventually, if we apply these practices, become rich. Number 1, become well educated. 90% of millionaires who were happy in their lives had graduated from college, and 62% had graduated from graduate or professional school, while only 19% were in the top 5% of their class. The key to making sound life decisions, not only in finance but in general, is to become savvy about what you will be doing for your career, as that really is your foundation. Being at the top is not necessarily as important, being at the top of your class, but successfully graduating, doing your best. Because if you're in a school of the top echelon or a community that has very intelligent or very talented people, you want to be in that crowd, even if you are in the middle of that crowd or towards the end, because you will then grow yourself. But if you put yourself as a top dog in a very unaspirational group, I should say, how much further can you grow? The key is to continue, but also start with a sound educational future. No matter where you end up in that class, you finished, you completed, you've gained the knowledge, and you can keep growing off of that. So the key is that it's clear that wisdom, when applied, makes a tremendous difference. Number 2 is to have patience. It takes time to accrue wealth, and I think that's something that we forget. It would be very nice to be secure right now. Thomas J. Stanley interviewed baby boomers in their mid-50s for his book, and that came out in 2009. And as many began investing in their mid-20s, it was evident that the $350,000 net asset mark did not happen overnight, but rather over decades of smart decision-making. So those little decisions we make every day, every week, every month when we sit down to our budget eventually end up paying off in the end. So number 2 is have patience. Number 3 is to make more than you spend. We hear this one a lot, but let's look at it a little more closely. Another commonality was millionaires lived in a smaller or less expensive house than they could afford and refrained from buying status symbol items such as vehicles, watches, and clothing. Did it mean that they were Scrooges? No, they had nice clothing, but they were smart, thoughtful purchases, and we'll talk more about that in number 8 of our list today. So number 3 is to make more than you spend. Number 4, don't depend on an inheritance. Get this statistic that was shared in his book, Stop Acting Rich. Only 12% of the millionaires in Stanley's study inherited any money from relatives as their means to achieving wealth. In fact, those who received inheritance were less likely to grow their money or maintain a millionaire status. The bottom line is we're going to have to make it work for ourselves. We're going to have to do the dirty work. We're going to have to be disciplined. And the good news is we all can do that. We really can. If we live consciously, we can do this. Number 5, invest in real estate, but purchase less than you can afford. As mentioned in number 2, most millionaires bought their first house at the age of 26. But most of them don't still live in this same house. And they tend, as they would keep changing homes, they would tend to purchase less than what their income would allow. Not only does this aid in one's health and therefore overall happiness due to the stress that's alleviated, it also frees up money to be invested elsewhere or to invest in experiences that will grow you as an individual. So number 5, invest in real estate, but purchase less than you can afford. Number 6, don't live in the most expensive neighborhood. Now, I know we always hear the advice of location, 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 or out there buying another home or our first home. And that is important. I absolutely agree. And I think anybody having this discussion would agree to that. While location is key in real estate, investing in a neighborhood purely to maintain appearances, regardless of how much it will cost, will do you no favors in the long run as you save and invest for your financial future and for your financial security right now. In fact, Thomas J. Stanley found that most millionaires were better off than their neighbors based on where they chose to live. So choose the best neighborhood you can afford that isn't without your reach and still allows you to make more than you have to spend on mortgage and other expenses each month. We have 5 more points to get to about how to not act rich, but instead be rich. I'm going to take a quick 1-minute intermission and I will see you on the other side. Welcome back. We have 5 more ways to help you not act rich, but rather actually be rich or financially secure. Let's get right back into it. Number 7 is to be generous. 60% of happy millionaires were found to give to charitable causes, while only 38% of unsatisfied millionaires did the same. While the reasons may be wide and vast, helping and giving when we can is easier when we make more than we spend on necessary expenditures, and overall will leave us feeling more connected to our community and those we love. So number 7 is be generous. Number 8, make smart purchases. Are wearing Manolo Blahniks off the table if you want to become rich? It depends. A frugal shopper who appreciates quality over quantity can purchase a pair of Manolos and wear them for years, or perhaps find them in a consignment shop. It is the person who believes they must have designer everything and pay full price as well that becomes the problem that negates the ability to become rich. I am a huge proponent of quality over quantity on the Simply Luxurious Life blog and here on the SImple Sophisticate. I'm a huge believer in cost per wear. If you're willing to invest in an item, but you know you're going to wear it 20, 30, maybe 100 times, the price each time makes that product decrease. because it's a matter of buying an item that will last each time you wear it that many times and will always look good. That's not a bad purchase. Saving up and buying something that is an investment is not a bad idea. It's when you think you have to buy designer name things or top of the line things simply for appearance's sake that you cannot afford. That's when it becomes a mistake. Part of the mission of living simply luxuriously is not to feel deprived, but instead to live intelligently. And I think you know what I mean. You know how much you can afford, and you can be that savvy shopper who knows how to get what they want at the best price. Maybe it's bookmarking an item you have your eye on since September, but you're not going to buy it at full retail because you know it may go on sale in November. So yeah, you do purchase this beautiful Donna Karan dress, but you know you've paid 75% off the retail price and it just happened to become available. If it didn't, you weren't heartbroken, but you know what's worth investing in. You know it's worth buying or saving up for or waiting for in this case. So number 8 is make smart purchases. Number 9 is reconsider the second home or that extra recreational anything, be it boat, trailer, etc. Stanley shares a long list of experiences and activities that Deca millionaires spend their money on versus buying a second home, a boat, or expensive labels in watches, wines, cars, and the like. Here is just a taste. They like to garden. They vacation in Paris. I kid you not. That is actually in the book. Isn't that fantastic? They like to visit museums. They spend their money attending Broadway plays, spend their time jogging, attending lectures, socializing with loved ones, raising money for charities, participating in civic activities, studying art, golfing. And this is just the start of the ways that these Deca millionaires, so people with multiple millions, spend that extra income rather than buying a second home, a boat, or anything unnecessarily extravagant. In other words, Stanley states, quote, "You cannot be in two places at one time," end quote. So why spend your money unnecessarily on 2 mortgages or paying down debt you don't need to thrive? So number 9 is to reconsider this idea of having a second home or an extra recreational anything that takes you away from the life you've built for yourself. Number 10 is to refuse to fall prey to the newest model. In 1927, Stanley shared that General Motors, or GM as we know it here in the United States, the car company, began to realize a winning sales strategy. Produce new models of the same car each season or each year as, quote, "people will pay big bucks for cars that symbolize wealth and status," end quote. Whether it's the latest Apple iPhone model or the new 2016 model of the car you are currently driving, new doesn't necessarily mean better. So long as you purchase a quality vehicle, care for it properly. There is no need to invest every time a new edition becomes available. Same thing goes for clothing. Just because the new season is out on the runway, this last month especially, doesn't mean you have to go out and buy another camel coat. If you bought a beautiful camel coat a handful of years ago, I have no doubt that you're probably using it today, or at least this season, and it will be great for years to come. You don't always have to buy a new model every single year. That's why the capsule wardrobe is fundamental to living this quality over quantity life. If you invest, you don't have to buy every single year. They will last, and you will always look fantastic. So number 10 is refuse to fall prey to the newest model. Number 11, cultivate self-esteem. I found this one to be particularly interesting. And even though we're talking money and numbers, there's so much psychology behind how we live and why we make the decisions we make. And so much of our contentment, our happiness lies within us. It lies within doing that work of understanding who we are, mastering our minds, and establishing a self-esteem, because we have to establish a self-esteem. Self-worth will always be with us. We were born with self-worth, as I've talked about in previous posts, and I'll provide a link to that particular post. But self-esteem is something that we have to cultivate. We have to water it. We have to create it. And that's where our confidence is established. One of the careers that predominantly acquires millionaires in its field of expertise is engineers, according to Thomas J. Stanley. In particular, Stanley observed one such engineer, and what he revealed was significant. Rather than seeking out expensive automobiles or items that projected the image of wealth, he chose to drive Guess what he drives? A Honda Civic. Why? This engineer was focused on value and quality rather than showmanship. The career achievements he had attained had played a significant role in his high and healthy self-esteem, and he didn't need to seek out external validation. For each one of us, if we feel that we need to go buy the new this, the new that, the new whatever, stop, give yourself a day to think about it for a moment, and ask yourself, why do I feel I need this? The answer won't always be, actually, I don't, but at least you'll know where it's coming from. Are you trying to fill a void? Do you feel that you have to prove yourself to get accepted by others? And if that's the case, perhaps we then at that moment about that particular issue need to do some homework, need to build up that muscle of self-esteem in that particular area. And we all can do it. We all can do it. I will have a handful of posts from the archives that deal with confidence and self-worth that I think you may enjoy reading if this is a topic that catches your attention. I do have an extra one to add to the list for how to become truly rich rather than just acting rich. And it's somewhat of a repeat of what we've been mentioning, but I want to end on this one. Number 12 is invest in quality. The bottom line is to purchase the best quality product necessary to complete the task effectively. Let me say that again. Purchase the best quality product necessary to complete the task effectively. Whether it is a pair of jeans that cost $200 but will last for 10 years or a Honda Civic that will run smoothly and efficiently for 10 years or more, if it gets the job done, let go of worrying about the audience. If they applaud, okay. But if they don't, you will still be financially secure and still stylish and arriving safe at work each and every day without having to go to the store every other week to buy a new pair of jeans or without having to go to the mechanic or buy a new car every other year. While the goal of our lives is not to become rich, it is what becoming rich allows. I have always strived to be financially secure and independently so, as it affords me the ability to dictate my future. As much as I wish I could have been uber financially secure when I was in my 20s, I have realized that it is a gradual process. And the key is to make savvy decisions, take educated risks, and consult those who know more in the subject of money than we do along the way. So long as we stick to that strategy, each year, each decade will provide a more secure financial foundation from which we can chase our dreams and live the life that we have desired to since we were children or whenever those dreams occurred. I want to leave you with one last quote from Thomas J. Stanley. Quote, "But the values and work habits of millionaires, like the roots of the oak, are what support their lifestyles, the leaves, so to speak, not the other way around. Choose to invest in decisions that build your roots, rather than leaves that will fall in autumn and simply be for show." I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you would like the show notes, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast66. Now, we still have a little bit more to talk about, don't we? Stay tuned for this week's Petit Plaisir. I'll see you in just a few. Welcome to this week's Petit Plaisir, and I have a Francophile find that will be a wealth of a resource if it is your goal to cultivate a French-inspired way of life, especially in your home. The moment that Florence de Dampierre's book arrived, titled French Chic Living, Simple Ways to Make Your Home Beautiful, I opened up to the intro. Okay, I did flip through a few of the pictures first, but when I truly sat down and started to read the book and read the intro, her first line got me. "My home is my sanctuary," is all it said. Simple. Spoke to who I am and what I strive to create with wherever I call home. And I immediately knew this was going to be a book that spoke to my predilections, filled with all sorts of ways to build your kitchen with regards to your kitchen garden. She details every single piece of vegetable or fruit that you can have at the ready. She talks about the storage process of certain foods so that they can keep as much flavor as possible. She takes you through the house and how you clean it. I have dog-eared so many pages. She gives a very simple cleaning solution of white vinegar and lemon that I have on my to-do list to do. I continue to hear good things about white vinegar, and this was a trusted reminder of how to actually create the cleaner to use it. She shares ideas on how to entertain with flair, how to set the table, how to be a host. So many different ideas that come from the mothers and the grandmothers of France. She herself is an acclaimed decorator and has her own website and blog, which I'll provide a link to. She has had multiple books out on this topic, but this is the latest, just recently released this past Tuesday, the 13th of October. I will be slowly going over this book again and again and again, as I am someone who likes very clear directives so that I can apply them to my life and what works and toss the things that don't. But as I'm flipping through this book, each time I see something, I'm realizing she speaks my language. And if you enjoy anything that we've talked about on the SImple Sophisticate or the Simply Luxurious Life regarding the Francophile finds, you're going to love this book. I highly recommend it. I'll provide a link on today's show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 66 for French chic living, simple ways to make your home beautiful by Florence de Dampierre. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast where I'll recommend a book, a film, a recipe, or from time to time, introduce you to an expert who offers insight into how to live simply luxuriously. Anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Thank you for tuning in to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonjour!